think that's on. The method feeder can be absolutely unbeatable on its day. However, there are times when a more traditional cage feeder approach can actually beat the method, and that's something that I'm going to be trying out today. I'm at a beautiful venue. This is Poolsbrook Country Park. This is where I spent a bit of time last autumn, where I fished an autumn series here. It's a mixed fishery. There are carp in here, but it is more of a natural style venue, so there are lots of roach, perch, skimmers and some bream, and there have been catching some tench as well. So I'm going to be fishing one line today, but I've got two rods. I've got one set up with a method feeder on, and I've got the other one set up with a traditional cage feeder on. It's going to be interesting to see how each one actually performs against the other. We may even find that one of them will select a different species of fish, but we've got a bit of a breeze blowing in. I'm actually on peg 6, if you know the venue, but I'm sure wherever we sit we're going to get a few bites. I've seen a few small fish topping, but I'm just going to get some ground bait mixed up, get some pellets sorted out, and then I'm going to decide where I'm going to fish. Mix wise today I'm going to be using something a little bit unorthodox, something I haven't used certainly on this style of venue before, and that is I'm going to be using the new Mega Carp method mix. Now you might think that's a strange decision based on what you may have seen me use on here before. When I've been on here before, it's really always been about the F1 mixers, you know, when the fishing's hard. However, I just want to try this mix because firstly it's a new mix, secondly it is a method feeder mix, and thirdly it's got quite a lot of feed in it, and that's something that I just want to play around with today. I'm not going to mix too much, I'm not going to need that much. As you can see already, it's quite a lot of food in there. But I just want to try this sort of a mix to see if it's going to hold fish in the peg a little bit longer. Rod wise, I've got a couple of 11 foot slims. That's it, that's all I'm going to fish. I've got one that's got a conventional rig on, and the other one I'm just going to put on there a free running open method feeder. Normally with a method feeder, especially, well, on most venues really, I'd like to fish it with mono. You know, because there's a high chance of you hooking big fish. You know, they've been catching a few tench on here. There are carp as well. But method feeder fishing, you know, it can be so much easier with mono, you know, because the bites are different and all that sort of stuff. However, if I have mono on one rod and braid on the other, then when I'm casting out, there could be a slight discrepancy in the actual distance because of the stretch in the line. And I don't want anything like that to give me a false impression. So because we're mainly targeting bream, really, on the method feeder here, I haven't really got a problem fishing a method feeder with braid, if that makes sense. So the real reason I'm doing it is really for accuracy. As you can see there, I've got a shock leader knot there. Okay, it's only 1 metre long. It's 1 metre long. And then on there I've got a snap link swivel, and then one of the Matrix medium rubber stoppers, and that is it. Tiny little length tag of line there, and that's where I'll attach my hook length. And that's my free running rig. Really nice and simple. Now, as regards the actual ranges of fishing, I have fished it before, so I think personally today there isn't any wind blowing, but I think anywhere from around 25 to 30 metres I think it's going to be all right. From what I remember, it's a nice clean bottom, so that shouldn't be an issue. But I've just got a clip left on there from yesterday, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my sticks and stick both rods up at 30 metres. I think I'm just going to get this out there just to get an idea for what that bottom's like. I'm sure the bottom's all right anyway. That's just it bottom. So, you know, it's a decent depth. And from what I remember, the bottom is lovely and smooth. There aren't any ledges or anything like that. We've got quite a few rocks close in here that go out to really long pole range, 14 metres, something like that. That's where the rocks or the stones finish. So anything past that is really nice and smooth and clean. So all I'm going to do with this is, that's my conventional setup. All I'm going to do is clip this up at 30 metres, cast out so it's bang on 30 metres, just double check to make sure that bottom's okay, and when it is, I'll get my other rod out, put the method feeder on that and clip that up at exactly the same range. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just wet that braid, and what I'm going to do is when I feed my line, I'm going to use the 30 gram feeder, not the 20, just because the 30 grams is going to straighten that braid out better. So that ground bait now, I haven't had to sieve that ground bait or put it through a riddle or anything. You know, it's quite a coarse, well, it's a really coarse mix, to be honest. As you can see, there's all sorts of stuff in there. Because it's so coarse, you don't really have to sieve it or riddle it. Just rub it between your hands like that. That's all you need to do, and that way you'll find that it's it's ready to fish. So I've picked my 4-bank marker, I'm not going to pack that feed in too tight because I am going to be emptying it straight away. Hit that clip a little bit easier than I thought. Right, empty on the bottom. Check that out. So what I'm going to put in now, I'm going to put a few not a lot of mica pellets. I've got the mica pellets there in case I want to just put mica pellets around the method feeder. That's an option I've got in a little while, but there's enough bits of pellet in this ground bait as it is. A few pinkies in there and a few dead reds and a pinch of worm. That's it. So like I say, at the minute I just want to attract some fish into the swim. I just want some of this bait coming off on the way down, just to try and draw something in. That wind's coming straight in now. That's it. I've got to admit, I do fancy this bank when the wind's blowing in. It's a 40 centimetre hook length I'm going to kick off with. I'm going to put a couple of fluoro pinkies on. Some of these are slowly coming round now, so these are going to be riddling nicely, which can give you a bit of an advantage on harder days. And that's it, let's get out there. Coming a bit from the right now. Get that tip down, and ducks are going to go right across my my braid, and we're in. There are lots of small fish in here, lots of roach, perch, and there are times when they can just attack anything on this line. When I was here in autumn, there were times when if you just fish for bites, and sometimes those small fish were, you know, they were a problem, you know, because they were literally only that big, you know, 1 ounce roach, even less than that. That was an indication there. There we go. We've got one. How about that? I didn't actually set my stopwatch going there, but yeah, that was just a really nice flicker straight, and it was on. Not sure what this is going to be. I'm guessing it might be a roach or something, but it's not one of them really tiny fish. But like I said, we might find that there we go, roach. Well, there we go. And that is freezing. That is really cold. I'll be honest, that surprised me actually how cold that was. But we've got one first cast, which is great. And that's not too bad a stamp. When I said, you know, they were small before, they weren't that sort of size. You know, they were literally 1/2 ounce and up to 1 ounce. So that's, you know, it's not the target. But if they came in every cast, mixed in with any bonus fish, then, you know, that could be the way to go. As long as you're hitting all your bites and coming back with fish. I'm not going to pack it in too tight, because if I'm going to get any super quick bites, like you often can with roach, I don't want the feeder emptying on the way back towards me. I want it to empty right where my clip is. I think that's on. Yep. Well, it's absolutely brilliant to see so many small fish feeding. I really didn't expect this, I'll be honest. I thought it might have taken an hour or so to get going, with it being so cold overnight. I'm getting one just about every cast now. Well, I'm certainly getting an indication every cast. And I've had roach, I've had skimmers and perch. There we go. See, they're not a bad stamp really. If you could catch those quickly out there, you'd have a chance of competing with the pole anglers on a feeder. They're not really the stamp that I was trying to catch, I'll be absolutely honest. So whilst it's absolutely fantastic to get a bite every single cast, it's a lovely day's fishing really. But I really want to try that other approach. As you've seen, there are loads of small fish out there. Now we might get a better stamp fish just by sticking at it, you know, by playing the percentages game. It might, you know, single out, or you might pick up 1 or 2 better fish, and I'm pretty sure you would. If you got your head down on that all day, I'm sure that, you know, you would get 1 or 2 net fish as well. However, we've got this set up for a reason, haven't we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the method now. It's clipped up at exactly the same range, just with some ground bait around the feeder. I'm going to put a wafter on, just be a bit patient with it and see if this approach can pick out any better fish. Grebes just come up there, or they can give you some lovely line bites when they start diving down on your bait. And that feeder obviously casts a little bit cleaner with it being a method feeder, much more aerodynamic without that long hook length on. And that is it. Now I am going to set my stopwatch on this, because I'm going to be willing to leave this in much longer than the other rig, especially when there were there's a lot of small fish out there. When I was fishing that, if you left it more than 2 or 3 minutes, you were kind of wondering Has the bait been damaged? You know, has one of those small fish smashed the bait? That's got to be on. Yes, we've got one. Second cast on the method. I had that first cast with just ground bait on the feeder. And what I've actually done is, which I'll show you in a minute, I've just done a combination of pellets and ground bait. Certainly not a little roach anyway. Let's have a look what this is. I'm guessing it's a big skimmer. There we go. That's a better stamp, isn't it? Well, that's a brilliant response, isn't it? It's only second cast on the method. Much better stamp that, isn't it? Much better. And that was only out there for 6 minutes, so that's really encouraging. And that was with the combination. I'll just show you what I've actually mixed up now. So originally, as you know, I had the ground bait, but all I've done is I've done a mix. I've got the pellets here, which allows me to put just pellets around the feeder, but then I also made a combination here of ground bait and pellet. That's the mix that I've just caught that fish on. So obviously I'm going to repeat that and get back out there. So 6 minutes, and that wasn't really a long time, was it? And perhaps the other thing as well is I'm no longer introducing maggots, pinkies and worms like I was doing before, which obviously on its own could encourage those smaller fish to be there, because now all I'm introducing now are the micro pellets and ground bait. So that in itself could help just be a little bit more selective. Well, that has been out there 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And when I said about those bites being nice subtle dropbacks, well, this one definitely just hooked itself and nearly pulled the rod in. Like I say, I am fishing braid, so if you are going to fish like this, be very careful. Try not to don't leave your rod unattended, because there's no stretch with braid. And this was on one of these. Now mind if it had been a tench or something like that. There we go, another good stamp fish. So we had 3 casts, 1 with ground bait and 2 with the pellet and ground bait combination, and I think that's proved already that this can pick out those better stamp fish. The reason why I want to stick with it now really is because I want to see if the swim changes now that there are more pellets going in. You know, I'm happy with this approach, but it'll be interesting to see if it gets any stronger, or are we catching a bigger fish, because there's only pellets going in now, which is a lot more selective, isn't it? I think that's on. Just one big bang, and then it obviously went slack. So all those casts that I had earlier on with a conventional feeder with maggots, pinkies and worms, I never had to use the landing net once, and in 3 casts we've had 3 net fish of fish that were obviously there. They've got to be there, you know, but it just shows how different methods can be so selective for different fish. Well, that's completely transformed things, hasn't it? All 3 have been exactly the same size as well, aren't they? All the same weight. There we go. Well, this has been an absolutely fantastic experiment, hasn't it? It just goes to show that, you know, just because you're catching certain fish of a certain size on one method doesn't mean to say a different method in the same spot can actually pick out better stamp fish. Well, this has been a really interesting session. It's one that I've really enjoyed filming for you, and it's always nice to try new methods out like this, especially on such nice venues like this. I hope you've enjoyed me sharing this with you. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and I can make sure that I'll produce lots more session videos like this going through the summer months. So thanks for watching, and I really look forward to seeing you next time.